final review of Shadow of the Colossus. Okay guys, if you've been following me up till now, this is part 17 of my review series of Shadow of the Colossus, following all the boss fights, and now here we are, the end of the game where Wander is now discovering that his partner in crime, the Light Spirits, were actually an entrapped demon named Dorman, who was using him to unlock his prison, whose wardens were the 16 colossi that were living in this fantasy world, each holding the keys to the prison, which turned out to be their very life forces. Wander has been betrayed, and now the game's meaning is finally setting in. We play our video games, and we know that the hero's journey is always the just path to take, leading to the saving of a kingdom, princess, people, or just stopping the threat caused by the big villain to just not exist. But what if the hero's journey, set up like any other, actually turned out like this, where the consequence of taking out beasts were actually the freedom of the big bad villain? The previous conceptions of video game consequence, justice, and monstrosity are all pulled into question in this one video game, which is why the ending is something to stick with, where your mentor in this entire game actually turns out to be the giant villain, and you've played right into his hand. Dorman possesses Wander's body to escape his imprisonment just when the village elders arrive to grab Wander's sacred sword and actually use it to reseal Dorman in the baby form of Wander. Somehow Wander's girlfriend woke up, maybe Dorman was telling the truth about the 16 colossi thing, and gets to watch Argo limping into the temple with a broken leg. I guess 20-story drops aren't as painful as first believed. Anyway, Wander's girlfriend and Argo go live their lives in the overworld around the temple, yada yada yada. Shadow of the Colossus was a game that centered around a core gameplay idea of killing giant monsters with ledge grabs and other unique pathways, combining parts of adventurous pathfinding, intense boss combat, and puzzly bits in order to create this wonderfully artistic piece of a video game. And while Team Ico's artistry isn't yelling at your face constantly, it's kind of also too apparent. Artistic subtext in video games shouldn't be this obvious. Instead, it should be something subtle that combines with several different outcomes that can be discussed later by its players. But really the only thing I'm trying to say here is that Shadow of the Colossus is undoubtedly built as an arty game. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's just what it is. Anyway, Team Ico's core idea did get stale after a while, and I was glad they started venturing into ways to revamp the combat itself with flying, swimming, shooting, and vehicle mechanics that makes the late game bosses almost distinctly unique amongst everything else, which is a huge plus. But if you examine deeper, there are definite problems to be had. Celosia and Zenobia are huge targets. Bull-sized colossi don't deserve the term colossi, which is disappointing along with their fights not being very good. Bosscinerator was another standout problem with just a horribly designed mess of a fight, and the final boss also being baptized with a host of asinine jackassery moves that water down its true quality. But really, it's overall expertly well put together, and I'd recommend it above anything AAA can pull out currently. You'll never find anything else like this game, and it's fucking great. One of the best games to find, and with my boss fight reviews, I will be doing a final score on this game itself. Gameplay. The combination of gameplay modes do give the air of the creators knowing exactly what and how they were going to do with this game, and it comes across as a whole completely amazing, with releasing many standout classics and exemplars of boss fight design and technical work. Gaius, Avian, Valus, Phalanx, and Argus all come across as the peaks, while Bosscinerator, Celosia, and Quadratus do remain the stinkers in this game. But they more or less balance out in order to reserve a final score at the 9 Triforce table. Story. This game, with its artistic bent, does challenge a lot of the preconceived notions that gamers typically have over their experiences. The bad guys are always bad, the good guys are always on the just path, and the guiding principle of the hero is more or less completely trustworthy, except when it's obviously doubtable. Wherein, Shadow of the Colossus, the early boss fights seem to be just big hulking beasts minding their own business once Wander finds them and provokes their wrath for acting first. The tendrils that erupt from the colossi corpses that pierce Wander's soul do cast massive doubt on it all, and finally the entire era of the fights with some of the colossi, Valus, Quadratus, Phalanx, Malus, and Argus, all give off strange feels that don't seem right, when knowing that they must be killed to restore wifey. This game wrong-foots you about all your baseline instincts that gamers have, with the climax being the ending that ultimately teaches the player the consequence of misinformation. My thought is that it's one of the most unique video game storylines put together and deserves nothing less than 10 Triforces. Fun. While some boss fights are fun and some require more attempts and more patience than others, the problem with an arty game is that its main focus is the main message brought across rather than creating a good experience for the player. So like I said before, the good points such as the Gaius and Phalanx fights balance out the quibbles of Celosia and Bosseron with the catharsis of Malice to the boredom of Barba. This game is well balanced with all of its game styles packed together greatly. Shadow of the Colossus is one of the best games of all time, and I'd recommend it to anyone with a PS2 or PS3. 9 1/3 Triforces for an all-around good time. Well, that's it. Shadow of the Colossus goes on my personal gaming shelf as the series is over. The game gets a final score of 28 1/3 Triforces for being a superb example of what can be done with video gaming as a storytelling platform and tutor to others trying to make a video game. If only AAA could make something as amazing as this one more time, but that's not going to happen in this corporate culture that video gaming has devolved into. The next game, guys, I'll be doing is Ico, the other game I got in my compilation disc with Shadow of the Colossus on the PS3. Unfortunately, Ico is going to be a one-part series as there is only one boss fight, and in that case I'll be combining it with the overall review. Thanks for watching, and remember, victory for gamers. See you next time.